For many folks, 2020 can't end soon enough. Chalk it up to a pandemic that turned the year of the rat into the year of COVID-19. Fortunately, there were plenty of options for gamers to pick from, thanks to several solid titles that were released in 2020. Whether you're looking for a game to cozy up to, or a potential stocking stuffer for a friend or loved one, here's a rundown of my picks for the top 15 games I've played this year. Granted, I didn't get to play all the games I wanted to this year. That includes the second Ori game, as well as stuff like Neo 2. So unfortunately those games aren't in this list if they happen to be games you like. So it's just I've been super busy this year, so not as much time to play games as I used to have. Now let's get started. Up first, let's address the big cyber elephant in the room, shall we? At number 15, I've got Cyberpunk 2077. So I've actually debated whether to even put this in the list. Obviously the launch hasn't been the best one. Yeah, so Cyberpunk 2077, the long-awaited magnum opus from the developer behind the Witcher series, finally sees the light of day with plenty of cyberpunk drama, sandbox exploration, first-person action, and a healthy heaping dose of Keanu Reeves. Whoa. Now, when things are working as intended, Cyberpunk 2077 is a potential Game of the Year contender. Maybe top 5? However, a rough launch marked by bugs and performance issues, especially on older consoles, knocks it down several pegs on the list. So it remains to be seen just how much of the game's kinks are worked out on the base PS4 and Xbox One. So if you're still thinking of getting it, PC is going to be your best option, though I recommend waiting just to see how they end up fixing it. Yeah, it's weird. I do these Game of the Year lists for my newspaper every year for almost a decade now, and I don't ever remember having to put a game like this in or consider it. It's just really tough because like when it's working, like I said, it's a good game, but yeah, that launch though could have gotten way better. Anyway, at number 14, I've got Trails of Cold Steel 4. So echoing the classic 3D Japanese role-playing game style that reached its peak during the PlayStation 3 console generation, Trails of Cold Steel 4 is an excellent representation of an era that is near and dear to the hearts of many fans of the genre. From its anime-style visuals and JRPG soundtrack to turn-based mechanics that boast a plethora of options, Trails of Cold Steel 4 is a bona fide treat for old-school JRPG lovers. Now, this comes with like a plot summary for folks who never played the first 3 games. However, I still recommend that you do that, and by that I mean play those older games, because if you don't, the plot dump is going to hit you like a bullet train, all the way from Japan. Next up at number 13, I've got Paper Mario and the Origami King. With a whimsical cast and colorful world based on papercraft, Paper Mario and the Origami King looks like a not-so-serious game at first glance. Underneath its playful veneer, however, is a poignant and touching story that just might tug at your heartstrings. Add solid RPG mechanics and a more open design for its world, and this game will make you want to say papers, please. Then at number 12, I've got Sakura Wars. The original Sakura Tyson games were a big hit in Japan, ranking among the most anticipated titles for the Sega Saturn. Yeah, I'm kind of dating myself here. Remember that console? Gosh, I was like super broke back then, and I remember paying like I think $400 for a Sega Saturn. Oh boy, the games were pretty sparse at first, especially here in the US. I had to like import a lot of games from Japan. Anyway, following an extended hiatus that lasted more than a decade, Sakura Wars is back with a new generation of theater girls and steampunk robots. Yeah, seriously, this game features theater actresses who go to battle in steampunk robots. While it retains the dating sim and visual novel aspects of the franchise, Sakura Wars replaces the series' classic tactical RPG battles with Dynasty Warriors-style action. Now that's a controversial move for fans of the old series, but I guess they figure that they'd get more people in by adding action instead of the old tactical stuff. Anyway, there's nothing else quite like it out there, so I recommend checking it out. Now let's go to number 11, Sakuna of Rice and Ruin. Yeah, so get to play as a young spoiled goddess who gets banished to a god-forsaken land. Like, literally, this land has been forsaken by the gods, in order to fight monsters and plant rice. Now, the rice farming in this game is so surprisingly detailed, it'll make you appreciate the hardships that farmers had to go through in the olden days. Suddenly, that old Filipino song about planting rice is never fun. It's starting to make a lot of sense. I mean, it's kind of fun here, but oh boy, it feels like work. Anyway, the side-scrolling action is excellent and looks gorgeous. Almost feels like a Vanillaware 2D action game, so that's a good thing. Now we're getting to the top 10. Number 10, I've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Kill the wabbit. Kill the wabbit. Remember that cartoon? Yeah, so the long-running franchise heads to the frozen lands and seas of Norway as you relive the tale of Viking warrior Eivor Varens. I'm not even going to try. Eivor. Let's go with that. I mean, just try saying his first and last name like fast 10 times. I dare you. Anyway, Assassin's Creed Valhalla tells a tale of revenge and intrigue that plays out in a vast open world that players can explore to their heart's content. As with past games in the series, you can choose to go YOLO and play Eivor like Leroy Jenkins, or sneak around like a stealthy assassin, or even do a mix of both if you have commitment issues. Raise your hands. Either way, expect a long and chunky adventure that'll keep you busy for hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. Oh yeah, it's a long game. At number 9, I've got Streets of Rage 4. Now in the pantheon of side-scrolling beat-em-ups, Streets of Rage holds its special place in my heart thanks to its pulse-pounding action and one of the best soundtracks to ever grace a video game. Streets of Rage 4 continues that tradition with a more modern take on the franchise that also punches in all the old character sprites from the previous game as unlockables. Throw in an all-star cast of composers such as Yuzo Koshiro, and you've got another worthy entry in the series. Then at number 8, I've got The Last of Us 2. Now, storytelling was the driving force in the original post-apocalyptic game, and this sequel is no different. Then again, the follow-up's narrative is a lot more polarizing, thanks to a plot development that hits fans of the original game especially hard. The survival-based action continues to rely on a mix of shooting, melee, and stealth, but it's the dark, revenge-fueled story that will likely be remembered about this game. You'll either love it or hate it, but it'll elicit a strong emotional reaction either way. Now let's move on to number 7, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. If you like sci-fi plot twists, this game is akin to the video game version of a pretzel. We're talking time travel, fakes, double fakes, even triple fakes that love to pop up just when you think you've got stuff figured out. The juxtaposition of different eras such as World War II, the 1980s, the present, and then the future were especially intriguing. Add tactical RPG battles involving giant robots, and you've got a science fiction lover's dream. Don't forget your tinfoil hat. I do find it interesting that, Sakura Tyson goes action from tactical. And then you've got Vanillaware going tactical, even though they're more well-known for their action stuff. I mean, they've kind of done some different stuff before, but I just thought it was interesting. Then at number 6, I've got Doom Eternal. Now, first-person shooters don't quite dominate the gaming landscape like they did back in the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 days. I mean, back then, they were practically bursting through the industry's seams. It's like just first-person shooters everywhere, or even third-person shooters. Then again, you still have games like Doom Eternal that do the genre proud. This game looks and quacks like a modern shooter, but it walks like an old-school entry in the genre thanks to its quicker pace of play. The result is a hectic experience that's hella fun, pun so totally intended. Then at number 5, I've got Persona 5 Royal. How fitting. That was like totally not on purpose too. I just noticed that while I'm going through this list. Yeah, so the original Persona 5 just barely missed being my game of the year back in 2017, but I ended up putting it number 2 behind The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild back then. Now it makes the list a second time, thanks to Persona 5 Royal. Now normally, when I do my annual list, I do not include enhanced re-releases. Then again, Persona 5 Royal is such a treat that it merits inclusion once again. Sporting a hip and jazzy urban vibe, Persona 5 Royal is a twist on the classic JRPG formula that shapes up to be an example of the genre at its finest. Chalk it up to great characters, catchy music, and a turn-based combat system that surprisingly still feels fresh in this day and age. You'll never see it coming. Then at number 4, I've got Ghost of Tsushima. Now, if you've ever wanted an Assassin's Creed style game that's set in Japan, look no further. Then again, it would be wrong to think of Ghost of Tsushima as a pale imitation. The game takes the best parts of the genre while throwing in some extra oomph to craft a masterpiece that stands on its own. The combat, for example, feels a lot more engaging and has better flow. Storytelling, meanwhile, is top-notch, while the visuals are some of the best to ever grace a game. It's a hauntingly beautiful experience. Now we're getting to the top 3, so up next I've got Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now this might look like a kid's game, but as is the case with fluffy, delicious desserts that you can't stop eating, Animal Crossing New Horizons is dangerously addicting. no matter what age you might be. This slice of life game lets you develop your own island, starting out with a piddly little tent that you can eventually replace with fancier digs that match your unique tastes. Emphasis on unique. I've seen some pretty unique buildings out there. Yeah. Anyway, along the way, you can also enjoy the simple life by fishing, picking fruits, even jet setting to your friends' islands so you can wallow in feelings of self-pity and inadequacy as you admire their significantly better creations. You know it's true. Gosh, some of the people out there. Then at number 2, I've got Hades. Yeah, so this modern take on the roguelike genre might not have the shiny visuals, production values, and colossal budgets of several of the games in this list. But what it has is top-notch and highly addicting gameplay, which it dishes out in spades, or blades, or bows, or even a shield that you can use like the demigod version of Captain America. Yeah, you'll die a lot. Like a lot. So much dying in this game. But that's okay, because what kills you just might make you stronger. And last but not least, we've got my game of the year. Now, remaking a classic does not always go well. Just ask Coke. Once in a while, however, an attempt to reimagine a beloved classic surprisingly works out. Final Fantasy VII Remake is one of those times. This game proceeds to build on the foundations of the original by further fleshing out the Midgar arc with new content, while also retelling beloved scenes from the original in modern fashion. Combat, meanwhile, employs a new hybrid system that successfully melds real-time action with menu-based mechanics. Add great visuals and a stellar soundtrack, and you have a proper, modern rendition of a timeless piece of JRPG history. Now, admittedly, some portions in the middle feel like filler, and then having to wait for a long time, likely years, before seeing its final chapter is also a bummer. Hopefully it's not Kingdom Hearts all over again. But overall, the game is a great example of a remake done right. It's just one of those rare games that perform well across the board, whether it be its excellent visuals, fun gameplay, solid storytelling, or overall production values. I mean, at least it plays great on base PS4 systems. Well, I use a PS4 Pro, but still. Like, no major game-breaking bugs. Ah, Cyberpunk, what have you done? So what are your favorite games of this year? I'd be especially curious to hear what games you like that did not make the list, because chances are that means I didn't play them, and I'm always looking to play some good games. As always, please feel free to share any thoughts or questions you may have in the comment section. Once again, this is Tabi Asobi, and thank you for watching.